charges of anti-Semitism and outrage over late-term abortions. We'll take a look. And just ahead of another U.S.-North Korea summit, new allegations the communist regime is producing more fuel for nuclear bombs. This is Special Report. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier. The big question right now in the nation's capital is, will President Trump support a compromise budget plan that gives him some of the money for his border wall and averts another partial government shutdown? The president says he's not thrilled with the terms, but is thrilled about the direction of construction. We have Fox team coverage. Mike Emanuel's on Capitol Hill to tell us what's exactly in this proposal and what's not. But we begin with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts and whether the New Deal is the right deal for the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal. Good evening, John.
Brad, good evening to you. President Trump is still waiting to see exactly what is in the deal being negotiated by Congress, so perhaps he'll want to listen to Mike Emanuel. White House officials tell Fox News today the president will not make a decision on a way forward until he actually has something to review.
Okay, thank you all very much.
As Congress moves toward a deal to avert another government shutdown, meeting with his cabinet today, President Trump gave what he has heard so far two thumbs down.
Am I happy at first glance? I just got to see it. The answer is no, I'm not. I'm not happy.
The deal would give the president $1.37 billion to build 55 miles of new fencing in the Rio Grande Valley sector. The money is far short of the $5.7 billion President Trump wanted, though the president suggested he will find other ways to get what he wants.
I'm adding things to it, and when you add whatever I have to add, it's all going to happen where we're going to build a beautiful, big, strong wall that's not going to let criminals and traffickers and drug dealers and drugs into our country.
Conservative pundits didn't like the deal one bit, and Coulter tweeting, Trump talks a good game on the border wall, but it's increasingly clear he's afraid to fight for it. Call this his yellow New Deal. And this from radio host Rush Limbaugh.
If he signs this, he's going to have to make the case that you never get everything you want all at once in Washington. We've got divided government.
But if President Trump doesn't sign it, the government will shut down again. And the president appears to have little appetite for that.
And I accepted the first one, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished, because people learned during that shutdown all about the problems coming in from the southern border. I've always accepted it. But this one, I would never accept if it happens, but I don't think it's going to happen. But this would be totally on the Democrats.
The president rallied his supporters to the cause for a border wall last night in El Paso, Texas.
We're building the wall anyway.
But literally across the street, a counter rally against a wall.
You did good, El Paso!
Led by former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, a possible 2020 presidential contender.
We know that walls do not save lives. Walls end lives.
And a disturbing moment at the president's rally last night. After his typical ripping of the media, a man wearing a MAGA hat jumped up on the press riser and shoved a BBC cameraman, causing the president to pause.
You all right? Everything okay?
The man was restrained and eventually ejected from the rally. After the BBC complained about lax security for the press at the event, the press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, today released a statement saying, quote, President Trump condemns all acts of violence against any individual or group of people, including members of the press. Brett?
John Roberts, live on the North Lawn. John, thanks. The compromise bill includes plenty to both please and anger lawmakers on both sides of the immigration debate. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel has that part of the story from Capitol Hill tonight.
A cautious response to news of a bipartisan compromise on border security just days ahead of a critical Friday night funding deadline. And now key players are selling it to colleagues trying to round up votes.
This is a down payment on where the president wants to go and where we want to go with him. That is to secure the borders of the United States.
Senior congressional aides tell Fox the agreement includes $1.375 billion for border wall. Funding can be used for 55 new miles of wall. Border Patrol can use any currently deployed design. Aides note that new construction will be in the Rio Grande Valley sector, which is the Border Patrol's greatest concern. The Senate Majority Leader says it's a good step funding the government and delivering some priorities.
I hope he signs the bill. And second, I think he ought to feel free to use whatever tools he can legally use to enhance his effort to secure the border.
A close White House ally elaborated on what more the president could do.
He can basically has some authority without a national emergency to reprogram money. And the other way is to declare a national emergency and move money around. I think he'll do both.
He can't raise the caps. And as for moving around the money, he needs congressional permission to do it.
There's also a component involving immigration and customs enforcement, which senior aides say has no internal enforcement cap, 5,000 detention beds above the record level, funding and flexibility to maintain detention population and respond to apprehension surges. And aides insist it provides enough flexibility to reach the president's requested level of 52,000 beds. Schumer notes it's a compromise.
Please, Mr. President, no one got everything they wanted in this bill, but sign it and don't cause a shutdown.
Many leaders, lawmakers have heard the pitch to support it. Like the president, they'd like to read it to see exactly what is in it. Bret?
Mike, in other Hill news, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced he's going to force a vote on the Green New Deal resolution proposed by a bunch of progressive Democrats on the House side and also Senator Markey on the Senate side. What about that?
Well, that's right. He's going to put it on the Senate floor. Quickly, 5 Senate Democrats quickly came out and supported the Green New Deal proposal. Senators Booker, Gillibrand, Harris, Klobuchar, a co-sponsor, and Warren. So clearly McConnell wants to put them and all Senate Democrats on the record on it. Bret?
Senator Klobuchar will join us in just a minute. Mike, thanks. President Trump says Minnesota freshman Congresswoman Ilhan Omar should step down over anti-Semitic comments. The president says her apology was, quote, lame.
Her lame apology, and that's what it was. It was lame, and she didn't mean a word of it. Was just not appropriate. I think she should resign from Congress, frankly.
Omar says she had no intention of offending anyone, including Jewish Americans. The lawyer representing one of the women who has accused Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault is urging state lawmakers not to delay a public hearing on the matter. Attorney Nancy Erica Smith, who works for Meredith Watson, says Fairfax should have to testify publicly. There's been no indication so far that legislative leaders want public hearings on that matter. The Virginia scandals are just the latest complications for a Democratic Party that some see as losing its self-declared moral high ground over Republicans on a number of fronts. Tonight, correspondent Peter Ducey looks at the fallout from a pretty difficult stretch.
In the time of Trump, Democrats are always trying to claim the moral high ground.
You are either complicit in the evil, you are either contributing to the wrong, or you are fighting against it.
The GOP tax scam is a moral obscenity.
It is immoral to allow politicians to harm women and families to advance a political agenda.
But the tables have turned now that one Democrat's controversial comments some critics saw as a defensive infanticide has only been overshadowed by questions about whether or not he's the one in blackface or a Klansman uniform in his yearbook. Virginia's Governor Ralph Northam.
I like him. Keeps us out of the papers. I like him. I'd like to find a few more guys like this one.
You might find some up the street in a Congress consumed by questions about racism in the Virginia governor's past and allegations of sexual misconduct in the lieutenant governor's past.
I don't know what all the right answers are, but I don't think the Democratic Party's ignored it. So to my Democratic colleagues, I think many of them have risen to the occasion.
Then there's the issue of Ilhan Omar, the Democratic Congresswoman now apologizing for anti-Semitic comments.
It's anti-Semitic and there's anti-Israel hate that's infiltrating American politics. We're seeing it on college campuses. It's infiltrating the halls of Congress.
Omar was condemned by Democratic leadership eventually.
It was almost as if they needed time to think through the political consequences, and that disappointed me.
But some Democrats doubt they will ever cede the moral high ground to Republicans as long as the president's name is Donald Trump.
All of these people point fingers at us when they are engaging in what I would call manufactured moral crisis as they continue to support the lying sexual predator president.
But regardless of who has the high ground heading into 2020, these scandals are high on the front pages of newspapers across the country, which could complicate campaigns of Democrats lining up to challenge President Trump. Bret?
Peter, thank you.
I don't have a political machine. I don't come from money. But what I do have is this. I have grit.
She had grit, but not an umbrella there in that announcement. Let's talk more about the presidential race with one of the Democrats who just joined the fray. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar made it official Sunday. Senator, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bret. And I'm glad you're doing well and you're on the mend after that accident.
You should have the sore throat, too. No, thank you very much for the accident.
It was fun to see my hair turn white in 20 minutes. It felt like you could watch yourself getting old.
Yeah. I've heard you list all the bipartisan pieces of legislation you've authored, worked on, sponsored. I've seen lists of quotes from Republicans, which probably don't help you in your race. But here's some reporting from one of your hometown papers, the Star Tribune. Asks, is she progressive enough to win the nomination at a time when the party's most liberal wing is ascendant? Her voting record is safe. It's very centrist. And that's just not what we're about. We need somebody that's a champion. So are you liberal enough for your party?
I believe in progress, and that's being progressive. But what I really also believe in is that we need to stop governing from chaos and move to opportunity. And these are views and values not just consistent with my party, but also with America. I think that we need to do better in terms of making our economy work better for everyone. I think we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And I look at this as not just a moral issue, I actually look at it as an economic issue. When you look at, in my state, we need workers for some of the jobs, especially in our rural areas. We have a 2.8% unemployment rate. 70 of our Fortune 500 companies are headed up by immigrants. 25% of our U.S. Nobel laureates were born in other countries. So I see that as an economic imperative. You and I talked about privacy legislation. We need to start looking up at the challenges instead of just fighting down, and I called it the river of our divides as I announced next to the Mississippi River. So that's what this is about.
Took notice of your announcement. I saw the back and forth about the snow and your talk about climate change.
Me Snow Woman, which isn't a bad nickname as they go.
But I want to ask you about some specifics today. Take a listen to this.
The biggest proponents of open borders are rich liberals and wealthy donors. These are hypocrites who oppose security for you while living their entire lives. I do too, to be honest with you. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I also live behind walls, okay? They live behind walls and gates and they have guards all over the place. Me too, because I want to be safe and I want to make America safe, if you don't mind.
Talk about immigration first. That's the president in El Paso. You've been supportive of border security and a barrier in the past. Are you now?
Well, first of all, I want to respond to what he said there. I don't live behind a gate. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. But I believe that you can have border security and do it in a smart way. I don't think that is running a wall across the whole border. When you look at some of our issues, some of the areas involve a fence, some a barrier. But one of the major problems we have right now is the drugs coming in, and that is not coming in those areas without a wall. It tends to be coming in at the ports of entry. And so that's why I have not looked at this agreement yet. Of course, it was just reached, but I know that that was a major focus of some of the negotiations to up the work that's being done at those ports of entry.
I want to talk about a number of subjects. Let's do a lightning round on immigration real quick. If there's an enforcement action and ICE finds a group of people living in the country illegally, no criminal records, should they be deported?
Well, I would like to see in the long term a path to citizenship, all right? And so that way, if you have people that don't have a criminal record, they wouldn't be deported. And what's bothering me right now, and if they've been here for a number of years, if they have learned English, all the things that we've had in the comprehensive immigration bill, which, by the way, was supported by Grover Norquist, because it would have brought the debt down by $158 billion.
If there's a family, their visa expires, they have 3 kids, should they be deported?
Again, I would like like to see comprehensive immigration reform.
And
I think you have to look at, when you look at these deep, this is what I've seen in my state, Bret, is that people that have happened to touch the system are the ones that seem to be then getting deported. Maybe, I mean this not in a criminal sense. I was a prosecutor. Of course, I believe people that have committed crimes should be deported.
Right, but I'm talking about
crimes.
this family and what happens to them today, because there's not comprehensive immigration reform, and it doesn't look like there's a prospect.
We don't want to deport 12 million people.
So you say
so
no?
The answer is, how do you pick the ones that get deported? And I would say you look at people that have committed crimes, no matter where they've lived, have serious crimes, and that should be, of course, your number one enforcement priority. My problem is that they've been going after, say, professors in Minnesota, or someone who's been a doctor in Rochester, Minnesota for years.
But here illegally?
This has been happening. When they first came in, they came in undocumented, but they've lived here for a number of years. The president won't protect dreamers. Right now, they're protected by a court order.
But you were a prosecutor,
These are people that were not brought to our country through no fault of their own.
Sure, but some people are here illegally. What happens if you find them in some enforcement action? If today that happens, there's not comprehensive immigration.
That is correct. But what I don't like about what's going on is that they seem to be targeting certain people that have maybe even tried to apply for citizenship and done the right thing. So the way you solve this is what we did in the Senate, bipartisan, with comprehensive immigration reform.
Okay, last one on this. Many lawmakers pushing for extensive guest worker program. Would you be in favor of a law that says that companies have to try to find a qualified American worker first before hiring a guest worker in the country and a guest worker visa?
I mean, I like that part of what we have in place right now, and I think we could strengthen it with our H-1B visas and some of the others. But you've got to have, when you look at the work that we did in 2013 on the farm part of this, we worked out an agreement with the Farm Bureau, the Farmers Union, and the migrant workers. We worked out a deal with the AFL-CIO and the Chamber, so that, of course, first American workers, but there are plenty of other needs in our economy.
Here's the Green New Deal. If the Senate Majority Leader brings it to the floor, how do you vote on it?
The Green New Deal, I see it as, by the way, I see it as aspirational. I see it as a jumpstart. So I would vote yes, but I would also, if it got down to the nitty-gritty of an actual legislation as opposed to, oh, here are some goals we have, that would be different for me.
But here's the goals.
Okay.
Full transition off fossil fuels, including drastically reducing air travel. You're for it?
I am for a jumpstart of the discussion and a framework, as Senator Markey has described. I am not for reducing air travel. So let me
net zero greenhouse gas emissions.
I don't think that is going to happen in the next few years, but you can imagine by new technology, and by the way, that includes nuclear and everything else, that we could get to a better place.
Economic security for all who are unable or unwilling to work.
I don't agree with the unwilling to work.
And last one, upgrade or replace every building in the U.S. for state-of-the-art energy efficiency.
I think we should put in better building standards. But could I just say what I would like to do, and I proposed in my announcement, what I would like to see is on day one to get back into the International Climate Change Agreement. We are the only country not in it. I would like to see us put in place those clean power rules again that would bring us a 30% reduction. I think those are doable things that we've worked on. And if you look at this from an economic standpoint, there's one thing that people haven't been talking about. That is that homeowners insurance has gone up something like 50% in just the last 10 years in the coast. But why? Because of the risk of climate change. Fourth hottest year last year. Parents driving their kids through wildfires in California, trying to talk their kid down. For us to do nothing and to go backwards is wrong. So I view this as a framework for discussion, but nothing that we are not going to reduce air travel right now. We are not going to get rid of all of these industries right now. We just need to start as a country seeing it as an aspiration to do better than we're doing now.
We have to do better with our advertisers. Would you mind staying after the break for a couple more questions?
I would love to accommodate your advertisers.
All right. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. We We are back with Minnesota Senator and 2020 presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar. Thanks for sticking around. A couple of more things. The Minnesota delegation. The president condemned the comments from Congresswoman Omar today for being anti-Semitic. Thinks she should resign from Congress. Haven't seen you weigh in on those comments. Do you think she should?
I did. I was asked for
I
a
just
comment.
haven't seen
It's okay. Yesterday in Minnesota, and I gave a statement that, of course, criticized the comments as being anti-Semitic. I'm glad she apologized. That was the right thing to do. But there is just no room for those kinds of words. And I think that Israel is our beacon of democracy. I've been a strong supporter of Israel, and that will never change.
The president talked about socialism in El Paso, hit it really hard. He seems to be using the State of the Union address, talked about it again, saying it doesn't work anywhere. It's produced poverty, misery, repression, and despair. Do you agree with that?
I am a Democrat and not a socialist. I actually worked in the private sector for 14 years, and I believe in capitalism. I just believe that you also need a strong government that looks at things like, well, if you have all monopolies and you've got no competition, you got to have antitrust laws. That's the founders of our country believe that. I believe you need consumer laws to protect people, and it's always a balance in how you do that. But you also have to have our country was founded on a strong economic system, and I believe in competition and capitalism.
There have been a number of stories about how you deal with your staff. I've heard you answer the questions, that you expect a lot, that you're a tough boss. You concede that. But you also point to others who say they like working with you. Some of the stories are pretty specific, though. Here's Yahoo. A number of former staffers, both male and female, describe a workplace environment governed by fear and dread, one in which Klobuchar treated her Capitol Hill staffers with cruelty and humiliation while fixating on seemingly minor issues. The Huffington Post says that Senator Reid rebuked you for mistreatment of your staff in 2015. Is that true?
I called Senator Reid when I heard this, and he doesn't remember that, and I don't remember that either. And I
so where's all this coming from?
I don't know. It's all anonymous, but I will say that I am proud of our staff. And yes, I can be a tough boss and push people. That's obvious, but that's because I have high expectations of myself. I have high expectations of those that work with me, and I have high expectations for our country. My chief of staff has worked for me for 6 years, my state director for 7 years, my campaign manager for 14 years.
Ever throw a binder at anybody?
If you look at that story, I think you'll see it said something about me throwing a binder down,
so you think
not
this is
at
just
someone.
Out to kind of give you a negative perception as you roll out this presidential run?
I don't know what it is. I just know that I should be judged, and I will take responsibility for everything that happens on this campaign. And there's nothing better way to judge a manager, which I was for years, by the way, when I was county attorney with a very low turnover rate for 8 years, managed hundreds of prosecutors, which isn't easy to do. And so I think people should judge me based on this campaign and how we do. And we sure had a good beginning, and that was a strong team that did that.
I mean, some are saying the questions are sexist to begin with, but obviously Democrats are going to use temperament as one of the things to run against President Trump. So do you have the temperament to be president?
I do. I think I showed that during the Kavanaugh hearings, and I have showed that through my life in terms of how I dealt with adversity in my personal life, growing up with my dad with a pretty severe drinking problem. He's doing well now at age 90, to the life I lead now.
And that's the elevator pitch?
Oh, my elevator pitch? No. My elevator pitch is I've had it with governing from chaos. We need to govern from opportunity. We need to look up at the challenges before us instead of looking down and looking away. And those challenges are big, but we are up to them as a country. And one of the reasons I came on this show is that I believe that candidates for office, whether a Democrat or a Republican, have to go not just where it's comfortable, but where it's uncomfortable. And I love you, but Fox may not always be comfortable for Democrats. But I want to make that point.
Senator Klobuchar, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bret. It's great to be on.
Up next, the verdict is in for notorious Mexican drug lord El Chapo Guzman. We'll go live to the courthouse in Brooklyn.
Fake news, fashion outrage. Why Bloomingdale's just pulled this T-shirt. It's insane.
shirt off a mannequin bearing the words "fake news" after a triggered reporter tweeted a photo saying the shirt delegitimizes hard-working journalists. I'm not sure how a shirt on a dummy does that. I wear a lot of shirts with slogans, and this dummy has no impact on anyone. I actually own an Anarchy in the UK shirt, and I've yet to topple a government yet. But this isn't really about shirts. It's about the modern spineless corporation, cowed by a tweet, reacting like dandelions in a strong wind. The spokesperson said, quote, "We apologize to anyone who found this T-shirt distressing," as if distressed shirts are the problem. But as you know, once you apologize, you just egg on those who are bored. Another member of the Press Safety Patrol tweeted to Bloomingdale's that its apology wasn't sincere. "Please try again," the tweet dripped, as if 1,000 apologies could ever satisfy those who sniff fear. So good job, Bloomingdale's. Today, one dummy in a storefront window is cold and topless, while another dummy scores a scalp. I can hardly wait to see where this is headed. I saw a mannequin in Soho wearing fishnet stockings. Fishnets! They're used to trap fish. What kind of message does that send our youth? Strong finish there. All right, Juan, I'm going to do your job for you today.
Thank you.
All right.
Might be wrong.
But Greg, last night a reporter was shoved at a Trump rally by a surly drunk who was shouting fake news. Could this shirt have contributed to that? To which I say, no, Juan, they never saw the shirt. And if you notice, it's a Trump supporter holding back that drunk jerk. So now I can move on to another guest.
Yes. I don't know what to say to you.
I played
Is that your point?
Yes, I wanted to undercut your point.
Well, no, I think it's very real. I hope you understand that people can be offended. Like, for example, this business that's going on right now with, is it Katy Perry shoes?
Yes.
That look like blackface?
Right.
And then people say, hey, that's offensive, and so then they pull it. I mean, there's certain things that you don't want.
It's a weird-looking shoe.
Yeah, but Juan, you're not offended by a fake news T-shirt, are you?
I don't like it if that's
but
what
you're
you're
not
asking.
offended.
Don't buy it.
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy it. That's exactly
passes
right.
the Juan test.
But I think that when you're talking about the kind of suggestion, by the way, this came from a local New York City TV reporter.
And then another reporter, and then everybody else goes.
What people are reacting to is the enemy of the press thing, right?
Okay.
But you know what? The thing is, Kennedy, you are an operator of sarcasm.
Sure.
You could be wearing the fake news shirt ironically.
Yes.
You could actually be wearing it.
News broadcast.
On a news, yes. Kind of as a symbol against Trump. I'm wearing fake news because I think it's a joke.
It's one of those phrases that has been inserted into our modern lexicon, and that's okay. And it's funny to poke fun of things like that, and that's exactly what they're doing. It's not a Trump 2020 campaign.
Not at Bloomingdale's, definitely.
No, all it's doing is showing sarcastically that this phrase is ubiquitous, and it's making fun of that. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the outrage and the apology. Like, I'm so offended that you're taking aim at hardworking journalists. That's not the intent.
No.
And that's not, and if fashion does startle people, if it does jar you a little bit, good for them. That's what it's supposed to do. Fashion is supposed to be unapologetic, like Dolce & Gabbana. Dolce & Gabbana make fun of everyone. They make fun of everyone, and they don't care if you're Selena Gomez or Ariana Grande. They will make fun of you, which is great. There's not enough of that in the world. There's not enough pointing out absurdity. There's too much apologizing and too much easy offense, and I'm done with it.
All right, Kennedy Morgan. It's true, though. It's like, you look at this, it's not a Trump T-shirt, and still the reporters are, like, offended.
Yeah, I think that the untold success story in all of this is for Bloomingdale's, actually. They responded to the tweet right away, and I love Bloomingdale's. I think they have excellent customer service. I tweeted them about my shoes.
This is terrible.
No, I think it's good. They respond to their customers.
That's idiotic.
Right away.
They should not be on Twitter.
She
because
loves Bloomingdale's.
I know what she's doing. I know what.
They responded to my
All right, how about this?
I got bad shoes.
All right, how about this?
I had new shoes.
Let's put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say you say something on the 5, right?
Yeah.
And that because that one person out there in outer space is offended by, and they contact Fox, and Fox goes, "We are so sorry that Morgan Ortega." Wouldn't you be pissed off if they didn't support you?
Isn't that called Mediaite?
No, but that's what my point is. My point is, companies are no longer standing by anybody.
No, I think Bloomingdale's is awesome and they have good customer service.
This is so selfish of you. You are, oh gosh, that's so.
Greg, you know what it is? I was going to get this shirt, but I don't look good in yellow, so I didn't buy it. But this is about the reporters. What your mom said? This is about the reporters who can dish it out, but they can't take it. Think about all the industries that reporters have attacked. The NRA, the military, the police department, the NFL, Fox News, Talk Radio, all this stuff. The minute you say anything about their industry, they lock it down. You can't criticize them.
How dare
because
you.
they have to maintain their status, and if their status is threatened, they run a mob at you.
Yeah. All right. Well, coming up, more fun. Senator Spartacus, love that, has a new beef. His campaign against meat next.
Going to war against meat, all in an effort to save the planet. The 2020 vegan presidential candidate is urging Americans to stop eating meat, saying, quote, "The tragic reality is this planet simply can't sustain billions of people consuming industrially produced animal agriculture because of its environmental impact. It's just not possible." Booker also adding that eating eggs doesn't, quote, align with his spirit.
Oh, God.
I don't know what that means, but considering Greg is stuffing his face.
Greg can't talk.
I do something I have to say about Booker.
Yeah.
I think he's weird, but I think it's authentic. So like I kind of like it.
That is true. He's authentically weird.
No, I think he means it. When he said eating eggs doesn't align with my spirit, I can visualize him. I can see him saying it, and I kind of like his weirdness.
Trump is blessed with the best enemies of all time. It's almost like he's casting his political opponents. He's the McDonald's president, and he's running it against a vegan. Think about the people running for president against this guy. You have a vegan, you have a fake Indian named Pocahontas, you have a coffee billionaire, you have people running around trying to abolish airplanes, people running around in blackface. This is going to be the greatest election of all time. This guy runs on a vegan campaign. Trump is going to say he's going to take away your hamburgers. He wants to take away your steak. Booker wants to take away your hot dog on the 4th of July. This guy is going to be obliterated, and it's going to be amazing watching the takedown.
Juan, you are not partaking in the meat festivities. We have some ribs and hamburgers here. Are you supporting vegan presidential candidates?
Well, I don't mind supporting. I mean, I think it's 10% of Americans are either vegans or vegetarians, so there are obviously a lot of us who believe in this. I don't happen to eat a lot of it anymore. I once had prostate cancer, and the doctors said, man, maybe not the best. But you know what it strikes me is you have Republicans. Ben Carson's a vegetarian.
Juan, don't try to normalize veganism. This is a political joke that the president is going to take full advantage of.
I agree with you. This is a joke. This is a political joke. It's okay. But
he wants to get rid of meat.
But you're making it out like, by the way, who called Warren Pocahontas? Only one guy I know of who did that. But the point here is, this is supposed to be left. But you know what? A lot of people have serious questions about meat consumptions. I remember Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey said this, and then the meat companies went after her.
No, wait. Okay, I got to respond to that.
Good.
Oprah Winfrey almost destroyed the cattle industry with false information. I mean, about pink was a pink meat.
But anyway, she was not found guilty.
Yeah, but I will say that there are legitimate reasons to go vegan.
And